Mana wana nikoma hachik katabatan mo wachi wamik kwasanish ananamanyan namanat wanikya kwasnis wachi Wampanoag makayasak ka wami washkasa hachik masipiat. Creator, we thank you for all things, ancestors, and we ask you to help us to do good works for our Mashpee Wampanoag children and all youth in the town of Mashpee. Nach. Welcome, everybody. The meeting will now be opened by Chairman Santos. I want to welcome you all here for our second meeting and congratulate Chairman Santos and folks elected and re-elected to our school committee. And we, I think we can save introductions because this is our second meeting of a fabulous relationship that we've developed, really, truly, between the school district and the tribe and the council. So I'm going to hand it off to Chairman for you to do Pledge of Allegiance and whatever else we need to be getting done.
I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Mashpee School Committee and Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe joint meeting. We're going to open the meeting at 6:34, and first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we move on, I do want to thank you as well for having us here and hosting this meeting. It's a very important step to,
Really is.
you know, to build and foster this relationship for the children of our schools. And, we appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the next item on the agenda is public comment. And
It's way down, but there isn't any.
I'm sorry?
There is none.
There is none? Okay, all right. We do not have any public comment, so we're moving right along. We have next the partnership highlights between Mashpee Public Schools and the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe.
So,
It's going to be Mr. DeBoer.
yes, it's my pleasure to sort of reflect on this past year and share out some of what we've been able to accomplish together as a partnership. And so we have a little slideshow, and I'll talk as we go through. This was the picture that we took last October when we were here. And we developed through the partnership, the group that meets quarterly, this vision. We envision a positive and productive partnership between the Mashpee Public Schools and the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe that includes and values the tribe's rich heritage and culture. We also, in our quarterly group, the group that meets quarterly, developed this mission statement. In partnership, we advance the academic growth and social emotional well-being of our Wampanoag students through an emphasis on culture-based education principles and practices. All Mashpee educators and students will continue to learn about the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe's history and culture, resulting in expanded cultural knowledge and awareness. So we have Caesar there at the powwow, and that's a recent picture taken at the grade 3 trip to the Wampanoag Indian Museum. This is just the timeline of meetings. We had our joint school committee and tribal council meeting on October 4th. We had our first partnership meeting, which is a group from the tribe as well as leaders from the Mashpee Public Schools. So October 30th we met, then we met again on December 11th, March 5th, then we're here today at this joint meeting, and our closing meeting for the working group is June 11th for the partnership, the last quarterly meeting. And in that partnership, we developed a rather lengthy set of action steps, and what we do is monitor that each time we meet and come up with new ideas that we add to it. And so some of these things will be highlighted. And feel free to add anything along the way, anyone. One of the things that I know we're all very proud of is the Wampanoag, and I'm probably not going to say this right because I'm not good at this. How do you say this?
Wampanoag.
Classic 1. So for school year 17-18, the current year, this course was open to any students in grades 9 through 12, and there are some fabulous students there with Melanie Roderick in the class. And then moving forward for school year 18-19, we're going to be able to offer the second level of that course for students in grades 9 through 12 who have taken the first level, and then also a level 1 class that'll be open to 8th grade up through 12th grade, which is nice. And then to Jessie Lildo for providing professional development to all 3 schools, 3 separate sessions that she did. They were very well received, very enlightening, I think, for many staff members, and from that sparked a great interest in having you more often to come back and teach our staff. This happens to be the Quashnet School, and those are the dates that those were held. We were very excited on December 19th that the Mashpee varsity boys and girls teams both were able to play a basketball game here, and hopefully that will become an annual tradition. I think it was pretty impactful for both the native students and also their teammates who are not native, and the people who got to come. One of the things that was part of the action steps was getting more library books about Native Americans and written by Native Americans in all of the libraries. This is just a small selection or sampling of what we ordered. That came off of the Indian Ed grant of the prior year, where LaToya selected books for the Indian education classroom at the high school, so we've tried to expand and have those available at all 3 public libraries in our schools. We did have Wampanoag Day for grade 5 at the Quashnet School in March, and there's a couple of pictures from that. That was also something that we would love to see expand because it does fit with the 5th grade curriculum, but it is really something that we hope that more students at the Quashnet School can experience. Recent addition, Mr. Shepherd, are you here? Yes, you are. So he did a Wampanoag Culture Week at Coombs, and those are some of the pictures. I know that a culminating event maybe is not quite happened yet.
This coming week, we had to reschedule, so it'll be coming this week.
Right. Towards the end of the year, that gets to be a very crowded schedule, and I think the culminating event might have conflicted with the Walk of Honor for the graduates last Friday, so I think we have to reschedule. But you know, and there's LaToya, she was in there. If you want to expand on anything about
well, basically what we did during the lunch is we had playing some videos on Wampanoag culture, and I also had.
And just, this is Scott Shepherd, our assistant principal at the Coombs School.
And we basically showed videos, and we were speaking about the culture. We also had Tootie come in and have our Indian students get up and speak in the language by introducing themselves and telling us, you know, they also sang the alphabet song as well. And our culminating event, we're going to have LaToya come in and do a presentation for the whole school in 2 separate parts and tell stories. If you look up there, the pictures on the right, she was in a classroom where she was telling stories and showing different artifacts and showing about round dances and explaining it to the kids. It was very, very successful. And looking, I don't know if you want me to speak about looking forward.
Yes.
Hopefully next year we would like to do like a seasonal event where we have, where you know, our Wampanoag culture is. My goal is I really want the Mashpee community to know who we are as a tribe and who we are as Wampanoags. So I want to do something seasonal and bring that stuff so it's on an ongoing basis, so that you know, people really understand who we are.
One of the action steps that we've taken was trying to provide a professional development series of classes for teachers. And so thank you to Jen, Weston, and Natana Green Deer for facilitating those. So we're almost, I think we have, it's going to end shortly. So 10 different Thursdays, every Thursday from 4 to 5, we get together at the Mashpee High School Library, and that was the flyer that went out. So there's a different topic. Last week we watched Mashpee 9 and had a conversation about that. And so that's a group. It's not always consistent. I mean, there are consistent members of our staff who come to all of them, but some of them couldn't make all of them. But there's a picture down below of the group. And then some of the ideas, I stuck that picture in my pen. Some of the ideas moving forward that are on this sort of plan that we have is creating a Three Sisters garden at the high school, and that would probably be a project of the students who are taking the language class. We're still trying to get the grade 5 clam bake sort of off the ground, and whether it maybe becomes, I don't know if it can be a fall activity. I would think that it could. We're looking, and I think that the language students are working on an informational pamphlet for families that are new to Mashpee, and are also creating sort of ideas for cultural displays at each school. We want to schedule more cultural assemblies and classroom visits for students, establish a system-wide Native American mentoring program. It's definitely a goal we have. We want to continue to include Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe on our monthly school committee agendas, so thank you, Natana, for sharing out there. We want to continue to look at our curriculum and develop cultural competencies by grade level. School to career internships for Mashpee High School students at the Tribal Government Center. I know some students, I think, were here this year. Continue to seek Native American candidates for any positions that we have, and I know we connected with, through Judy, through a site to advertise our positions. Scheduling tours of the Tribal Government Center for each school staff. I know we were treated to that as administrators, but we do want our staff members to get over here. And continue our quarterly planning meetings with our team. And then there's a little Winnie there.
There's Milan as big as me.
This wasn't on the list, I threw this in here at last recently, but I think it would be really kind of neat to have each Native American student give to his or her teacher or another staff member in the school system that's important to him as a personal invitation to the powwow. Because I think when you get, a student personally asking someone to come, it means a lot more than just seeing the flyer getting passed out. So as a way to, I think, increase participation and attendance at the powwow. We had it on our list to schedule a family dinner at the Tribal Government Center. We'd love to have Jesse continue to present annually to our staff. We have plans to recruit Native American representation on our school councils. I believe the Coombs School already has someone lined up for next year. And then we want to always make sure we keep lines of communication open. And, we said this before, and we've said it in the quarterly meetings. If you hear something through whatever source and it doesn't sit well with you, we need to just call each other directly, because that resolves a lot of issues, and then you get the actual facts that you need. So, and then the final picture is this year's graduates. And so congratulations to Kaya, Michael, Brianna, Grace, Naya, and Shyla. So, that's it. Anybody have any questions on anything?
It was a nice presentation.
I would like to comment that I think that the first year of this, us trying to improve our relationship has, I think, yielded a lot more than, quite frankly, I expected. I thought it was a very successful partnership. I think the town itself could look to the relationship between the council and the school committee and take some direction there. And I really do mean that. I think more informal conversation that we've had amongst each other off the table has helped to facilitate that as well in planning and communication. And I was surprised as a person doing the professional development trainings that we had so many teachers that really didn't live in Mashpee that really benefit from whatever background we can give them about the town and its historical makeup and current day culture. So I just think it was a really good year of coming together. And although I'm on the council and we'll be here for the two formal meetings we have per year, you certainly may continue to count on me for the professional development or the after school groups. And I also wanted to thank the other council members on the table that have been participating consistently, and David, because I know David, Councilman Whedon, is stretched thin too and sort of makes an effort to get out there and help represent, and of course the hard work of Natana and Jen throughout the entire year, consistent hard work. So, but to everybody that's had a hand in making this such a successful year for us, I just personally, also as a consumer of Mashpee Public Schools, want to just thank everybody. Just say thank you all.
If I could, I have to step out. I apologize. Planning board meeting tonight that I have to attend at 7 o'clock. But I would like to, I appreciate all the work that you've done, and it's always a pleasure to go to the school and do the performances for the 5th grade. I have to say, both this year and last year, the kids over there are really well mannered. They're very attentive. Kudos to the teachers and parents for having some really good kids. I've done programs at a lot of schools, And, you know, they're very attentive, they ask really good questions, they're very polite and respectful, and, you know, it's always a pleasure to go over and do those programs. Aside from that, I have talked with Scott, just on a personal note, that, you know, I would love to see the tribe, young youth, and some of the earlier grades try to bolster STEM-based programming to spark more interest in science-based and skills and career paths. The tribe, I see the tribe, you know, in the future needing to build capacity in those areas. Some of the STEM-based career paths and education, the roles that they can achieve through that type of education will help them, provide them with the financial ability to live here and remain here on the Cape. Those jobs are typically higher paying jobs, and you know, we need to try to equip our children to get those types of jobs. So, and as well as the tribe has a lot of unique opportunities where we could acquire grants and things to further ourselves in those types of careers as well. Some off the top of my head would be, you know, fish and wildlife, forest management, USDA type jobs, soil studies, you know, and any kind of career paths. You know, any kind of career paths in those science-based fields would be able to give the kids a lucrative career, and you know, we could use those skills within the tribal organization as well. But I have to step out, and thank you for coming. We appreciate all your work.
Just in thinking about what he said too, we've made an effort this year to bring in some outside groups for tours of the school. So we call them the Southport Falcons, and we have Falcon Friends, and we have Stratford Pond Falcons. So I really think, looking at this group, that we should really, if we can arrange, to have the council come, because really going into each building and seeing what's happening in those classrooms today is pretty eye-opening. And he brings up STEM, and there's a pretty strong STEM program over at the Coombs School. It can always get better, but he probably would like and enjoy seeing what kind of learning is taking place, because it is different than when all of us went to school. And then the other thing, I think, keen on Jesse, when we talk about sort of relations with the town and even trying to mend and become really strong ourselves, I think what's missing sometimes on the town side is seeing those children. Like if all the adults sort of got out of this mess, everyone would do what was right because of the children. So that's what I think sometimes gets lost. They get all stuck in these adult interactions and forget that it really is all about the kids and their future. So I think we could approach it from that perspective maybe.
Anybody else have anything?
Well, I just wanted to echo what Jesse said, and really just looking around the room, so many people who made all those things possible. You know, I've lived here for almost 10 years, and I don't think really a year has gone by where I haven't seen some dust up between the school and the tribe, you know, somewhere in the paper, except for this year. There wasn't a single thing that happened. Once we initiated this in the fall, and I just felt like the lines of communication were great, and we had a lot of committed people with lots of great ideas, just waiting for an opportunity to give those some air. And I have to agree with you that I feel like we are walking the walk, that is really a model for the way public discourse and the way a community should look, especially one as proud and based in so much tradition as this one. So I had actually said to Patty, when I heard about that 10-session PD that was offered, which I think is just genius, frankly, that we should be making that available to town officials and employees, because it's the same disconnect in terms of cultural awareness and just the opportunity to learn something. I think people take advantage of that when it's offered, but absent that, they're just going to continue with the same ideas, or, you know, whether it's stereotypes or just tradition, you know, the way their parents thought of things.
Or just apathy.
Yeah,
Which is just as bad.
Just they're busy, and, you know, so I think I feel like we're on a really good path. I don't want us to pat ourselves on the back too much, because I think there's still plenty left to do, but I'm just really pleased that I look around the room at faces that I don't think are gonna change. And so that constancy that I think we have going into the next school year and beyond is really gonna serve us well, so thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Anybody else?
So, I just want to say how impressed I am with everybody. From where we were a year ago to where we are today, it's a huge step forward, and definitely long overdue. And to your point, should help set a model for maybe some other adults to get in step and figure out how to have this type of discourse going forward. It is important to us because it's about the kids. That's why we're here. We care about all the kids, not just one group, everybody. And learning about the culture and what you've been able to bring to the kids and to the school and to the adults, within the school, I think is fantastic. I was just thinking as Nicole was talking, it would be great not only getting the town officials, but being able to include some of the parents. And I know we have a task group sitting on both sides of me here who are focused on trying to increase communication between the school and the families and the public. And I see that as a great opportunity to continue to expand that message, because unfortunately every one of us are not natives to this land, and so every day there's more people who don't know that culture, don't understand it, or have been here and are recalcitrant in their ways. And so I like what I see. I want to see more, and I want to see it continue. So congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to quickly, just to reiterate something, because I've heard it from almost every single person I've talked to, is the communication piece. And I just want to, really establish the fact that that's extremely important. So that open line of communication, to keep that going. And, we have a lot to learn from each other. We can learn from you all, and you all can have things that you can learn from us. And if there's ever any kind of concern, communication, that's important, and that's the key. And I think that's one of the big things that's really helped us build this relationship, and one thing that could be used in other, by other communities as well. But if there's ever anything that comes up, any concerns, any ideas, I know Patty is always willing to pick up her phone whenever needed. Our emails, you can always email us, and we want to keep that communication going, because if there's ever anything that's going to stale the relationship, it's going to be the lack of communication or the stop thereof. So I appreciate that up to this point, and I'd love to see that continue.
Yes,
so thank you.
And not just making the conversation back and forth, but I think one of the things that we've done extremely successfully between the two groups is that we've not just put the information out. The people sitting across the other side of the table were actually listening to what was said, not just sort of taking the time in the seat and giving somebody the opportunity to talk, but we've been responsive to one another, and that's a huge piece in communication, is hearing, taking the information in, and then acting on it. And so I think that's what we've done so successfully this year.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Thanks for pulling that together, Pat.
All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is to hear from the representative from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, Natana Green here.
Hello, everybody. So tonight, we wanted to follow up on what I had mentioned at the last meeting, which was the students' desire to have some sort of installation at each school. Before we get to that, we have Autumn and I think maybe Alyssa here to tell you what they would like to do. Before we get to that, they are still working on their brochure. We have all the content done, so we're just in the stages of putting it together now. So on Monday we'll work on making it one cohesive piece of information, and then we'll put that together in the final week. So, Autumn, if you want to come on up, I guess you can maybe sit here, and she has some paperwork to pass around too, so everyone can see what she's got here.
So, good evening. My name is Autumn Jackson, and I'm here on behalf of the students in the Wampanoag language class at the high school. Recently, we were asked to create a brochure on the history of Wampanoags. In addition, the class and myself feel we need a permanent structure that symbolizes Native American culture and Wampanoag way of life to go along with the information in the brochure. For this permanent structure, we discussed doing 2 small mashoons. A mashoon is a small word for boat, which is like a canoe, in front of the Casey Coon School in Quashnet. The mashoons that will be placed in front of the elementary schools will be used for planting. We are going to grow different indigenous plants in each of the mashoons. The mashoon that we plan to put in front of the Indian education window at the high school is going to be a replica of a mashoon, but with one side missing so that it would be like a bench. We hope you like these ideas, and the class and myself will greatly appreciate it if you accept our proposal. Thank you.
The papers that you have there, one would be sort of like a little visual of what those things might look like, and the other is like a draft of a sign that might go by either of those things, so that people would know what they're looking at.
You're proposing like one dugout just as the dugout, like finished product?
Yes. So
then one as a planter and one as a bench?
So the one in front of the high school would be the bench because it's going to be the largest, and I didn't go to the Casey Coons and Quashnet School, and I'm going to be graduating from Mashpee High School, so I wanted to do the bench because like I'll be leaving there, so. And then the 2 planters at the elementary schools are going to be like for the kids to go, something that they can do throughout the year, so like when springtime comes and they can go outside, they can show like the other students like the different plants that we grow as natives, and they can teach them a little bit about our culture and what we do.
Your high school bench sounds like a great senior project. Is it going to be?
Yeah, we discussed that, but I'm not so sure right now, but it's in the making, so.
Well, this is what I love about having people your age come up with ideas, because I think that it's a really creative. I think when, I work in government, so I've been in a lot of government buildings, and when I think about installations, when you approach a government building, I know just what I'm picturing, and I've seen dozens of them. And I think what you've proposed is something just a little more innovative and connected to each school in a really neat way. So thank you. I think it's a great idea.
Very good idea.
Thank you.
Good job.
If I may, I just want to apologize. I'm a little late. I got multiple meetings this week. This is a crazy week, so Secretary asked me late. Yeah, write that down.
That's it for you? Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I did have one question. Are these going to be wood?
Yeah, they're going to be wood. We're going to actually burn them out like we do traditionally for 24 hours at a time.
Okay.
So,
Autumn's dad makes these boats, so she's got the inside track on them.
Nice. And do we need to do anything to?
I guess at this point, it's just a matter of if everyone's on board with this, and then, we can figure out, we did talk about it being part of her senior project, so if we can actually do that, then I guess it's a matter of just, starting that process, and we can get through it maybe next year.
Yeah, this would, as far as I'm concerned, should be left up to the principals and the superintendent.
Perfect.
I mean, I'm sure every member, I don't want to speak for everybody, I'm sure every member of the school committee is very excited about it and supports it. So,
Yeah. I just want to make sure we weren't preventing anything.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, well then we can talk about it as in class, and we can get to everything else.
Thank you very much
Thanks,
for the presentation. All righty. Next item on the agenda is Carl O'Reilly with an update on the Indian education.
Hello, my name is Cal O'Reilly.
Good try, Cal.
Get to the table.
Nice try.
Okay, nice try. My back seat.
You want to sit over there?
Oh, I'll sit next to you, Cal. Thanks for all your help. Let's see. Hello, my name is Cal O'Reilly. I am the program coordinator for the Mashpee Public Schools Indian Education Program. I am also a paraprofessional and a fellow Mashpee Wampanoag tribal member. I would like to begin with thanking you all for providing me with this opportunity to update you on the Mashpee Public School Indian Education Program. The MPS Indian Education Program presently accommodates 149 students, which I must proudly add that the 6 seniors that graduated on Saturday, June 2nd, 2018, maintained the 6th year of 100% graduation rate. Each senior was given a beaded Leyland pouch as a small incentive for their hard work and determination. We offer tutoring services to all schools. Casey Coombs School twice a week with Jay Smith, Quashnet School twice a week with Deb Green, and Mashpee Middle High School 3 times a week with George Spivey and myself. In addition to tutoring services, our program provides cultural workshops and field trips. In an attempt to better communicate and connect with the students, their families, and the community, I set up a Mashpee Public Schools Indian Education Program Google website. The link can be found on the district's website under Indian Education. I created and manage Mashpee Public Schools Indian Education Twitter account, and I sent an informatory letter to all parents via group email with hopes to be easily accessible in regards to accommodating their concerns and suggestions, and share postings of events, workshops, and accomplishments. This year was a very successful year. I would like to give a special thanks to the Indian Education Parent Committee, Winnie Graham, Shawnee Turner, Latoya Green, Nicole Gavani, and to Judy as an active parent. Our parent committee has supported all aspects of our students by putting their needs first with decision-making, chaperoning on field trips, and being readily available to assist when needed. I would also like to thank the Mashpee Public School Administration Team, our Superintendent Patty DuBois, Mashpee Middle High School Principal Mark Belstracci, Reba Melby, Timothy Rumberger, Lindsay Catt, Mary Kate O'Brien, Susan Abches, Paul Bell, and Scott Shepard for the ongoing support that they provide to our students, parents, community, and myself. They greet our students every morning and is entirely approachable when engaging with them. They make it easy for our kids to communicate their needs and desires freely, to which they prioritize and accommodate the students as permitted by circumstance. I would like to thank all of the central employees for working their best to assure our students' plans and goals are executed to the fullest. Special thanks to Kathy and Paul Fong. I would like to thank Ellen and Trudy Coombs and Melanie Roderick for teaching our students the language through lunch bunches at Casey Coombs and Quashnet schools and teaching classes at Mashpee Middle High School. It makes me extremely happy to see consistency with their involvement. I would like to thank John Hamlin for continuously engaging with our students. John also chaperones on our field trips. He is always present at all of the high school, offering all students what they are entitled to through the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe's Education Department. John goes above and beyond when connecting with the students so well that they consider him family. He is a great advisor, mentor, and assists the students in programs when in need. I would like to thank the Mashpee School Committee for the ongoing support of our program and approving the Indian Education Field Trip to the Mashantucket at Pequot Museum this Saturday, June 9th, 2018. I would like to thank my fellow tribal members for allowing their children to participate in the program, because without your children's involvement, the program will not exist. The workshops that we provided paved the way for students and community members to engage in cultural activities. The field trips were phenomenal. On May 2nd, 2018, I took 10 students to Four Seas Diversity Day along with Ms. Belstracci, Lindsay Catt, and John Hamlin. The students participated in workshops, attended a seminar by Morgan Peters and a fellow Mashpee Wampanoag tribal member and educator, ate at a cookout, and engaged in festive portions of the day-long event. They had an opportunity to engage with students from various cultures. We had a great time and will be attending next year as well. On May 23rd, 2018, I took 21st and 2nd grade KCC students to Franklin Park School. All attendees had a great time. The kids had the opportunity to see animals they never saw before and play at the zoo's playground. On May 30th, 2018, I took 30 students on a ferry to the Quina Cliffs in Marshall Beach. I would like to thank Brian Whedon and Camille Madison. Brian graciously supplied our students with an intense briefing on the Quina tribal history, the island's history, the Mashpee Wampanoag direct relationship with our sister tribe, a tour of the island, and a ceremonial smudging. He then asked Camille to recite the prayer, being native from Quina lands and part of the Quina tribe. In addition to this update, I cannot express enough the importance of all to continue to support our children so they can continue to benefit from everything that Mashpee Public Schools Indian Education Program has to offer. With that said, I would like to remind everyone of our annual end of the year social on June 18th, 2018 from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Mashpee Meadow High School located in the gymnasium and cafeteria. Thank you. It was a lot, so I had to write it, and that's still not, we left out a lot. So thank you.
Thank you for all you do, Cal. We really appreciate it.
I hope I didn't leave anybody out.
Anybody have any questions for Carla before she gets too far away?
I wish I did, so you'd have to sit up there a little bit.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. As the chairwoman of the Indian Education Committee, Kyla goes above and beyond for our children, and they all love her, as well as the teachers. And we wouldn't be able to have a good program like that without you. So, thank you.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Can I just ask again, the date again, it was June, the end of the year?
June 18th.
June 18th in the evening, usually?
Yes.
Usually is.
About
6 to 8.
6 to 8, yep.
Thanks.
No more questions on that. We'll move to the next agenda item. This item was, we're asked to add this by the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. It's in regards to the private tribal school recognition for discussion only. Is there somebody that wanted to speak on this, or?
That would be Jennifer.
So thank you for this time on your agenda. My name is Jennifer Weston, and I'm the Language Department Director here for the tribe, and I'm also the Project Director for Makaya Biku, which is the Children's House and Early Childhood Preschool and Kindergarten. So I'm sending around some information to introduce you to Makaya Biku and to give you some more background about the teacher credentialing process that we have engaged in over the past several years with our staff. We have 7 full-time teachers. I believe some of you have had a chance to meet them and to tour our Makaya Biku classrooms this past fall. And I've also had the opportunity to engage with 25 to 27 of the Mashpee Public Schools teachers this year, as Natana and I have been delivering the 10-part series on professional development on culture-based education. So that's been a fantastic opportunity to have dialogue with your teaching staff. And we've gotten a lot of requests from them to come and spend time in our classrooms. So we're hopeful that that might be something that we could add to the next round of professional development, as some site-based opportunities for your team members. So what I've just sent you is really just an introduction to Makaya Biku. And I think one of the reasons why your teachers have asked to visit our classrooms is because the first 2 sessions that we delivered were really a case study about the year-round culture-based education practices. So we literally went month by month and talked about the way that our curriculum framework is molded around and draws from Wampanoag culture. So it's delivered primarily in Wampanoag language, but it also is very closely mapped to a number of the Common Core standards in the state. So in preparing to continue to grow our environment, we recently were awarded a small grant through one of Jesse's organizations, the Yale Alumni Club and Granite Communications. So they were interested in supporting Makaya-Sekwiku as an early learning environment. And we also received just a few days ago a grant from the First Nations Development Institute in Colorado that specifically funds the addition of a first grade this fall. So we've been reviewing the practices of other tribal language schools, many of which are situated on tribal reservations as we are. And we found a mix of approaches to these schools working with the local school committee in terms of satisfying the general overall state requirement for compulsory attendance among students. So many of the schools that we talk to are founded on huge Indian reservations. So for example, mine is about the size of Connecticut and spans the North-South Dakota border. But the school there, the language school, has actually gained status as a state-approved school, specifically so that students, when they transition out, they have this record of attendance in an official educational environment. We've also found other tribal schools that really don't worry about the state requirements, have no relationship with the tribal school committee. Obviously, that's a very different situation than we're in here. So we wanted to approach you after we reviewed the federal guidance, which I believe I forwarded to all of you in email. We just reviewed the state statute around how a private school can be approved or recognized by the local school committee. And once that documentation is in place, then students who attend a private school are counted as meeting the state's compulsory education requirement. So previously, this is our second year of operations, and previously we've only been serving children who are preschool and kindergarten, which is not the age group that is covered by the state's compulsory education requirement. But we do have 3 kindergarten students who are full-time with us this year, whose parents have all expressed a strong commitment for them to stay with us for the coming year. And so we wanted to open a dialogue with you about our status as a private tribal school and just do everything we can to ensure that our children are noted as fulfilling the state's compulsory education requirement. So I can just walk you through this packet really quickly. I just wanted you to have a sense of our status as a federally funded language nest. The vast majority of our budget is granted to us through the Department of Health and Human Services, and a subunit within that federal agency's Administration for Children and Families, which is called the Administration for Native Americans. And they're the largest grant maker and supporter of Native American language nests or early childhood environments and language survival schools in the US. So they make around $10 million in grants annually. And we're presently in the 3rd and final year of that, one of their large grants, and we plan to continue to build that relationship as well. We're essentially a tuition-free school. We do have some small activities fees that we ask for parents to contribute. We also have parent involvement requirements that include things like commitments to monthly community nights, supplying all of our snacks and lunches for our students, and we also ask parents to participate in language education opportunities as well. The second page talks about our mission, which is really focused on educating and growing independent learners and speakers of the Wampanoag language and empowering children through their tribal heritage. We also provide our students with strong foundational skills so that they are able to achieve in math, science, language arts, geography, and more. And I think some of you who had the chance to tour our 2 classrooms were really impressed with some of the curriculum content areas like toddler geometry and some of the science sections. So we do hope to have the chance, like I said, to share more of that with your teachers at Mashpee Public Schools. I included a little bit of information about Montessori philosophy. It's a newer area of education for many of us who are working in the language department, but it was a philosophy that was chosen by our teaching staff and also through collaboration with Director Greendeer, whose children have attended Montessori schools prior to the establishment of Makaya-Sekwiku. And it really focuses on a hands-on and student-centered learning environment that is very structured in terms of the curriculum offerings. The next page is talking about how we specifically implement Montessori pedagogy at Makayasa Kikyu and how there's this melding of Montessori practice with Wampanoag culture in terms of the implementation of culture-based education and the opportunities for children to learn about their heritage and their culture through their language, but through this very structured educational environment. We're also part of a large network of native language schools and programs spanning everywhere from Hawaii to Alaska to Wisconsin to Oklahoma to Montana to the southeast, so schools in North Carolina and Florida. There's a large, ever-growing number of tribal communities who are implementing language nests and language survival schools, and some of whom are also implementing Montessori language classrooms. We have a brief section, we talk about the core values that our students learn about, and not only through language, but also through the practices and the training of our teachers. So they learn about core Wampanoag values in terms of being respectful, being honest, compassionate, humble, brave, and grateful. And this is all part of their education and learning to be part of a children's community that is part of, it's really run by the children. So in Montessori practice, teachers are not called teachers, they're called directors. And the Children's House is named that because it's the children's domain. So the children are responsible for taking care of one another, taking care of their space, taking care of the environment together. And they're learning about not only how to implement principles of peace education, they learn a lot about dispute resolution, and they also learn how to function as a group who are very compassionate and caring for one another. I also included a brief history, so just to give you a very short timeline of how this project has in the past 8 years been focused on opening a language nest and a language school. We're still in the growing phase of that, obviously. But we've done quite a bit of community outreach, everything from surveys to open houses to focus groups and info sessions and all kinds of planning events as well. And we plan to continue with that set of activities in the coming year as we assess our progress toward growing into an academic elementary school. At this point, we are not an accredited school, but as I mentioned, we're funded by the largest federal source of Native American language, early childhood education, and language survival school funding. And we do hold our teachers to a very high standard of training and education. So our teachers are all certified through a pretty exhaustive language certification process that's administered by Vice Chairwoman Baird and Director Greendeer in terms of both written and oral exams that they take at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, if we're following their language fluency growth especially closely. And our teachers have also attained other educator qualifications such as the state early childhood education credential, paraprofessional certifications, and we have a core group of 4 teachers who are in the process of completing their Montessori early childhood teacher credential, which prepares them to serve students up to age 6. So that's the second handout that I've sent you that just talks about the framework of Montessori teacher training and what that credentialing process can entail. In addition to our participation in the National Coalition of Native Language Schools and Programs, we've also looked into a range of accreditation structures and frameworks, and one that's been especially highly recommended to us by the Native Hawaiians who operate a large network of Native language nests and schools is called the World Indigenous Nations Higher Education Consortium. So that's something that we're looking into as a way to work with other Indigenous peoples communities throughout the world who are implementing education primarily in their native languages. We've also had a really productive partnership this year with the UMass Boston Early Childhood Education and Care Program, and they provided us with a quarterly expert to come and observe our classroom and to make recommendations about the ways that we can improve our practice and improve some of the classroom opportunities for our children. And lastly, there's a brief section about our administration and governance. And WLRP, or the Wampanoag Language Reclamation Project, is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we serve as contractors here for the tribal government to operate the language department, but we are also governed by an intertribal board of directors, including membership from Mashpee, the Aquinnah Wampanoag, the Asana Band, and also the Herring Pond Wampanoag. So our teachers and our students are drawn from these 4 tribes, though Mashpee is certainly the largest tribal community, and also the community that has shown us great generosity in providing us with the beautiful classrooms that we teach in every day. And the majority of our teachers are Mashpee Wampanoag citizens, as well as our students. We're governed by a board of directors that is elected from these 4 tribes, and we're also governed by a committee of our regular language students, so people who are active in the classes that are ongoing. The last page is just school contact information and a list of our staff, including our teachers and our nutritionist and our licensed practical nurse who works with our team as well. And then the second handout is just to give you a sense of some of the key areas of education and skills development. Our teachers have gotten to the last stage of their teacher credentialing process, so they're entering into a period of preparing for their final exams and presentations. They've received more than 300 hours this year of education and instruction. They're also required to participate in 30 hours in the professional development. So that can include things like attending other Montessori conferences or observing in other educational environments. They've also had the opportunity to present our curriculum and their work with our students at conferences like the National Community Food Systems Conference, where we talked about the ways that we implement culture-based education in our classroom and center our work around growing and the annual seasonal practices around harvesting and shellfishing and all the great things that our kids are learning about from their own family members oftentimes. So that is all I have for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I haven't had a chance to review in depth our request with the tribe's attorneys, but I did provide everyone on the council and you as well with the federal guidance that we've looked at. And we wanted to make the distinction between requesting approval as a school and requesting recognition as a school, just because of the nature of the tribe's sovereign land base here and our role as an educational institution that serves the tribal nation here in Mashpee. So thank you very much for your time. And
Does anybody have any questions?
I have one. At the beginning you mentioned that you did a bit of research with other examples like this in other tribal nations, and you said some don't bother with getting recognized by the school committees and others do, and so I'm curious what happens in either case.
I think the distinction, you mean what happens with other schools?
Yeah, so if there wasn't recognition, what would the implications of that be? And if there is...
So for some schools, they are operating on a very large base, so it's pretty unlikely that their children are going to transition into any public school system. They're often attending a mix of tribally operated elementary through high schools. Sometimes there's parochial schools that are run by tribal religious institutions, for example. Often there are schools that are operated through a mix of tribal federal partnerships. So there's actually a Bureau of Indian Education that operates out of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So that's the distinction. In our case, because it's such a small land base and all of our families are residents of the Commonwealth, though many of them work and their children are attending school on the reservation, the land base isn't presently housing people, although that may change in the future. But we did want to continue to build on this opportunity in terms of the partnership. And I think the last time I spoke to you, I talked to you about the resources that are needed to sustain and continue to grow language education, not only in the public schools, but also in Kaisakmiku. And we've done quite a bit of work on that with the cooperation of Patty and Hope and the other educators in your school system, and especially with the assistance of our business manager, Judy. We've been able to apply for a $1.3 million U.S. Department of Education grant that would actually expand language education opportunities in both the public schools and in Makai-Sekwiku. And we've continued to seek a number of other private foundation and federal grants as well that would enable us to expand Makai-Sekwiku. But we, through WRP, we view these two tracks as parallel but complementary. And we do recognize that many of our students at some point will transition into the public school system. So we do want to make sure that we're building a relationship with you and keeping you apprised of our growth and the educational levels that we hope to continue to expand. Thank you.
Yes.
Can you just provide a little bit of clarification in regard to the federal versus state route that you were talking about as far as recognition versus approval?
So in the language of the state statute, the state approves tribal schools only through local school committees. And that's the language that's used in the statute, that local school committees approve private schools. So there isn't a relationship apparently in terms of teacher credentialing or curriculum. It's really based around, as far as I can tell, documenting the number of school days and the number of instructional hours that are offered. But just because of the tribe's relationship with the town and then the tribe's direct relationship with the federal government, I just found that language problematic in terms of seeking approval. So that was why I framed it as recognition.
It's really just a matter of semantics.
But I guess what the state statute is ensuring is that local school committees are kept apprised of any local private institution that's operating, and that there's some sort of official administrative relationship and documentation being provided to the school committee for review, so that they are aware of that school's student population and that they're meeting a basic instructional number of hours each year.
So currently we don't have any private schools here in Mashpee, but when I looked around the Cape, there are a number, particularly the Montessori schools and Cape Cod Academy, etc. And I'm not familiar with the requirements or what that process is that they have to go through with their respective towns. I don't know if the superintendent, I think in Bourne you have several, is that correct?
Well, there is a Montessori school in Bourne. I can't speak to how that relationship
Okay, I didn't know that. Didn't know if you were familiar with that process.
I am not. We can find out.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not in a rush. Like I said, we just received this funding. It's been our hope that we could add grade 1 this fall, and we certainly have a really strong parent commitment to the current kindergarten cohort that we have. They would love for their children to stay with us. I think the alternative that some of them have mentioned is if there was not some sort of formal relationship established, they would be willing to go through the homeschooling recognition process with the state. But that seemed like kind of a lot of extra work for our parents to have to take on, given the fact that we do have such a rigorous academic calendar and training program for our teachers, and we're a federally funded institution. So I just wanted to open the dialogue with you in advance of the September school year.
And Jen, are you aware of any financial impact on the district with our recognition or approval of your school?
I'm not. The document that I reviewed, I'm not sure if you got the link, but I can send it to you. It was a document I just pulled down from the U.S. Department of Education that had a summary of all 50 states and how each state goes about regulating private schools. And it didn't really talk very much about financial implications. I think just in terms of, we do have a couple of students who have come to us who have either had IEPs, for example, or have received some sort of services through other Cape Cod institutions, and that might be something to consider. But I mean, my understanding is that those services are guaranteed to students if they're residents of a district, and that doesn't change. But I don't think that a standalone private school really has much of an impact on the local school district.
I mean, me personally, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of questions as we go forward. I mean, I just, this is a perfect example of the collaboration and communication. Because at the end, it's all about taking care of the kids and making sure they have what they want and what the parents want for their children as well. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this grow and getting the questions answered and being open and honest about it.
Great. Well, thank you for the time on your agenda.
Here's the last question I'll have for you, because everybody else pretty much answered everything. Good job. Because you're doing a lot of hard work and doing everything you can to get this moving forward. I know you said that you're not in a hurry, but I would like to get at least some kind of timeline that you're hoping for. That way, you know, we want to make the best of your time as well. So, you know, we don't want to leave this, you know, sitting and you know, keep pushing it down.
Well, I think it would be great if we could resolve it before the end of the fall. I mean, it would be nice if we could address it by the September meeting, ideally. But again, it's a very small number of students. I'd be happy to provide you with more details about our curriculum framework. We have binders and binders of the Montessori curriculum. It's a pretty standard framework. The only difference being is that our teachers are offering it in Wampanoag language as much as possible. The other piece, I think, is maybe a review of, you know, our student attendance or, you know, the annual hours of instruction. There's some summary information included in the packet that I gave you. But we have transitioned a couple of our students into Coombs School, and we provided a really detailed, in some cases, 20 pages of documentation from our curriculum that shows every area that they've been working in our classroom and how that maps specifically to the Common Core standards. We're just finishing up our final round of parent conferences for the year, and I can tell you that some of our kindergarten students are already regularly being exposed to curriculum content that meets grade 3 and 4 standards. So we're certainly offering a very high quality education to the students, and I'd be happy to share, you know, more detail with you about that if there are any concerns about, you know, just the level of instruction that the students are receiving every day.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
Oh, I was just going to ask one more thing. First of all, that piece is not. I've been in that classroom, and I kind of, and just working with y'all, I'm not even. That's not my concern. But I do. We may have 3 kids this fall, but I very much expect a lot more people to take advantage of that. And you say in here that you have planned to go into up to third grade, I think.
At some point, we don't have a distinct timeline for it, which is why we've been working so closely with the public school to try to add more language into the offerings at both Coombs and Quashnet, you know, above and beyond the 20 minutes once a week lunch bunches that the kids currently receive. And then obviously these high school level classes are open to all students, not just the tribal students, though it's only been tribal students so far who have enrolled. So, I mean, we really do see these strands as kind of enmeshed in a lot of ways, because we do have lots of families in Makaisar-Kuwiku who have children in the other public schools. So they're cross-pollinating in terms of the content they receive in both of those educational environments. And there's different possibilities to grow and add even more language education into the public schools, but those are you know, much more long-term planning discussions, I think. So this is just a request around grade 1 instruction for this fall specifically.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So next on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from May 23rd, 2018. This should be in your packet. Anybody has any questions or comments on those? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Don, second by Jeff. Nicole, you go?
Yes.
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 Yes. Unanimous. Minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is the report of the superintendent. Mr. Moore.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to make sure the committee members, the school committee members, are aware of the memorial this Saturday, June 9th at 11 o'clock at Old Indian Meeting House for Janice Mills. So hopefully one or more of you are able to attend that. So it's 11 o'clock on Saturday. We're to honor a great lady. I also wanted to share out, it's not in anybody's report, but we did recently have Shane McCrory, who just graduated on Saturday, and he just received his appointment to the Air Force Academy, and he's accepted it, so he's going to be going there, and that is the first Mashpee grad ever to be accepted and attend the service academy, so we're very excited about him. Originally, I think he was going this ROTC route, he got a commander's, what do they call that?
Commander scholarship.
Scholarship, which was also highly coveted and very difficult to get, but he's going to go to the Air Force Academy, so kudos to Shane. Just to make sure everyone knows, the last day of school for students is June 20th. It's a Wednesday, and it's a half a day for students, a full day for staff. And just one of the upcoming events on next Tuesday at 9:30 is the volunteer breakfast. It's at the, you have a chart at the end of your thing, at the end of your packet. It's got wrong information. It's 9:30 at the Quashnet School. So that's an event that we would love any or all of you to come, and we have quite a few people coming this year, so we're very excited. So in the packet you have the report of Principal LaBelle, and representing Principal LaBelle is Assistant Principal Scott Shepard. 428 students, and just to highlight a couple upcoming events, the next week is the Grade 2 Flag Day performance on the 14th, and then the Student Recognition Day is on June 18th, which also includes the Nick Feldman Award Day. I do have this week's Mashpee Enterprise, which you're all welcome to have one as well, which highlights a lot of what's in the principal's reports, so I don't know that I necessarily want to go as detailed through the reports. There's a lot of activities going on, a lot of field trips, a lot of events at the school that are pretty exciting from the students' perspective. At the Coon School, they did just recently have a Booster-thon, which is an event for PTO, which raised over $21,000, which the PTO uses to give back to the school with different events that are enriching for the students. Anyone have a question on Mr. LaBelle's report?
No, but I was impressed with that amount when I saw that. That's nice.
That's good.
Good job, Kelly.
Next, we have Principal O'Brien's report. She has 489 students. I want to point out a thank you to Mr. Frank Lord, Sue Schreiner, who's a third grade teacher, and also Anita Peters, who is Mother Bear, for their sort of collaborative effort to provide our third graders with the field trip to the one-room schoolhouse and the Wampanoag Indian Museum. So each class goes individually, and particularly with the Indian Museum, it's very hands-on, very beneficial to the kids. And then also a shout out to Mrs. McIntyre, who is Mrs. O'Brien's assistant. She pretty much coordinates everything related to Career Day, which was held last week. And there were 37 volunteers who participated this year and shared careers and interests and educational pathways with the students. And it was a very smoothly run operation, and we're thankful to everybody who was able to give up their time. I'm going to let Mrs. O'Brien talk about today. They had an event at Bridgewater State, and then upcoming on June 13th, award assemblies for grade 5 at 9:30, grade 4 at 1:15, and then on the 15th of June, award assemblies and recognition assemblies for grade 3 at 9:30 and grade 6 at 1:15. And again, this is the season of field trips. We just discussed this the other day as an admin team, that they're all fabulous, but there just seems to be, at least from the person who organizes the buses, it's very hectic time, but all very worthwhile activities for the students, so we're happy with that. So Mrs. O'Brien, would you like to share today's event?
Sure. I'm just so proud of our students. This is the first year that we've participated in the Invention Convention program through Bridgewater State University. And our STEM teacher, Mrs. Whidden, hosted an after-school program and really helped just give the kids an opportunity to be creative. They came up with two different inventions to share. One was the barricade, which was a way to lock down a classroom, and that was made. Piper Mildy, Taylor Willman, Lucas DeHelian, Robbie Mayer, and Emmy Gorman were on that team, and they won honorable mention, which was quite exciting for the kids and actually for the school and the district, because out of being the first time to participate, there were 14 teams who were competing, 7 districts, and 9 schools represented. So it was really great to walk away with that honorable mention. They practiced hard. They presented in front of their peers at school before they went to Bridgewater. So I think they were ready. I'm really proud of their efforts. The other team was Bryce Clark and Braden Elgar, and they created a heat sensing robot that travels through a room and would then send the images to a cell phone so you could see where the heat is in walls and in buildings. And they came away with the best use of technology. So we're so proud of our Mashpee kids and their achievements. It's just, we're looking forward now to next year, and I think this has sparked such an interest for our STEM teacher, Mrs. Whitten, that I'm sure this is going to be a long road. We're going to stay involved in that, so we're just really excited to share those achievements. So.
Before, just to add something, because I have a third grader, and you mentioned third graders a couple of times. I have to tell you that my third grader came home from the schoolhouse trip just brimming with information about the olden days and school, and I think she had a new appreciation for how good she had it. So that was just made such an impression on her. And then also the career day, we were at someone's graduation party over the weekend, a very big crowd, and she was like pointing, which I know you're not supposed to do, but she was like, Mom, that's Mr. Hill, or that's Mrs. Hill's husband, and he's a book author, he writes children's books. And he noticed us looking at him, and so we walked over, and I said, I think you have a fan, and she, it was so cool. So I just have to say that experiential side of both going places, just there to just suck all that in, and then having people other than us talk to them about what they do and the things they love, just really just made a great impression with her. So thank you for all you did to facilitate that, and to the travel members who helped too. It was great. As a parent, I was very pleased.
Good. Well, thank you.
And the assignments for the projects were a challenge for the parents too, I will inform you. We all learned something about what works and what doesn't.
All right, next in the packet is the report of the Mashpee Middle High School Principal, Val Strachey, who's also here. 742 students currently in grades 7 through 12. Just want to point out that tonight our DC travelers are due home probably around 11-ish. And hopefully they have slept the whole way home, because they are expected to be at school tomorrow. That was part of the deal they signed up for. If the teachers have to be there, they have to be there. And anyway, there's been a lot of pictures shared, so far that it looks like they've had a fabulous time. And I just want to give a shout out last night to Cafe Trevi in the Mashpee Commons. They hosted a wine and a dinner with wine event last night that allowed our culinary chef, Will Stolowski, to work alongside their chef, Jamie, to create a meal. And then our ProStart students were involved from start to finish in an actual restaurant kitchen and the serving and all that. And then the total proceeds, Trevi donates back to the ProStart program. So it's really an amazing contribution from a very generous community member. So we're very grateful. That was the third annual dinner. So thank you to Susan and Mike Musto, the owners of Cafe Trevi. And then next week on the 14th is the Special Olympics. The school day games are held at Mashpee High School this year. That is an outstanding event to come and watch and to support in any way that you can. We have our athletes there, but all the schools from all around come and support. Is that a senior project for anyone this year?
Not this year, but there'll be over 600 athletes that attend and participate that day. So it's a really great event.
It's very meaningful. And then that night is the academic awards night for grades 7, 9, 10, and 11. And then on June 15th, there is the first annual Mashpee Middle High School family picnic that we hope everybody will come to.
What date was that?
That's on the 15th.
The 15th.
It's at
5:30.
5:30. That's a Friday.
It's a Friday.
Do you have any questions on the high school report, middle high school report? On the second page of his report, I just want to highlight too, we did have our scholarship night for seniors a week and a half or so ago. And just to confirm, we had $160,550 worth of scholarships donated to our very deserving students. And I want to thank Lindsay Kett, the Guidance and College and Career Readiness Director, and Miss Linda Catalina. She's an executive assistant in guidance. Pretty much the two of them
coordinate everything with working with the donors, the organizations, the students, making sure they're connected to the available scholarships. So it was a very nice evening. A shout out to Cam Kurgo. He's a junior at Mashpee Wampanoag High School. He is on to the New England this weekend at University of New Hampshire, I believe, yes, for high jump.
Yes.
Yes. So 6 feet 8 inches is his ongoing achievement, and so we're very hopeful that he's successful.
It's pretty high. He has the second highest jump in Massachusetts and is the third highest jump in New England this year to date. So we're very proud of him, and Mashpee kids are going and doing great things all over the place. So congratulations to Cameron.
And then we also have a baseball tournament game this Friday night. I don't know if we know who we're playing yet, but it's at 4 o'clock on June 8th. And our baseball team, I think, is ranked top.
Number 2 seed.
Number 2 seed. So pretty good, because last year I believe 10 members of the team graduated. So there was always like, oh, they're not going to do it.
What's going to happen?
They just rise right up and take over the kids. Next, we have the report of Special Ed Director Dr. Jane Curley. She's also here. I don't know if you have any questions on anything. She added a little bit more of teaching you about local education agency assignments. So, do you have questions? And then we have the report of the Athletic Director, Matt Treveri. Just a couple of highlights. Congratulations to Brooke Bridges and Torrin Burton, who were Mashpee's 17-18 Scholar Athlete representatives at the South Shore League Scholar Athlete Banquet. The varsity baseball won the South Shore Small Tobin title for the 4th year in a row. We talked about junior Cam Kurgo. Varsity baseball is ranked number 1 in Division 4 by the Boston Herald. The girls lacrosse did qualify for postseason play. Unfortunately, they lost their first tournament game yesterday, but they have had a fabulous season, and it's the 2nd year under Coach Arlene Petrunich, and it's the 3rd year that they have qualified for tournament. So, good job for them.
My only comment on this was to somebody whose kids are in the lower grades. I don't know who Brooke Bridges and Torrin Burton are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if he could put like juniors, seniors.
Oh, seniors, they're
both
graduates.
Okay, I
There's a
assumed
picture
maybe
of
they
Brooke
were.
in my thing. She was one of the officers.
And then did Tara Palermo score a 300th goal and what?
Oh, lacrosse.
Okay. I was just curious.
Sorry.
I didn't know if it was soccer or if it was, I mean, it's not
Lacrosse.
soccer season, but
She's going to college to play
Yeah.
lacrosse as well.
Okay, awesome.
I did have a question back on the special education. Just curious in regard to the big change between April and May, as far as the decrease, particularly at the middle high school.
So they were all reevaluations where students were found ineligible at the eligibility meeting.
Okay, so they
They no longer required
services.
services.
And the same thing at Casey Coombs?
Yes, that was actually the case at all of those, in all of the buildings. I checked with the school psychologist in each building.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a personnel report that shows some of our new hires, which most of them will say FY19. Nancy Kelly, as our outreach coordinator, should really say half-time next to her, or .5. And then there are 2 students who are currently on board to be part-time clerks working at #WeAreMashpee in the Commons. So you'll see some names for Mary Kaminsky will be our BCBA therapist next year. Jennifer Blackburn is a preschool teacher for next year. Catherine McDonough is a preschool teacher for next year, and Jessica Ryan, grade 1. Not on this sheet, but recently just signed, is Ed McDonald. He'll be the dean for grades 10, 11, and 12 for next year. You'll see departures. We have 2 retirements, Joanne Bellany after many years as a preschool teacher, and Kathy Penny as a grade 1 teacher. They had both long-term members of the team. I know. And then other departures that are non-retirement, Sarah Bacon is leaving the Coombs School as special ed teacher. Danielle Burton was a math teacher this year. Brenna Forsberg, grade 4 teacher. Julia Grover, our ELL teacher. And Kathy Simularis is a French teacher. And you know, several of them, the middle grouping, are young, and for some reason they always follow the male. If we talk to them, why doesn't the boyfriend follow you? They always follow the boyfriend. So that is why 3 of them are leaving. So we have to work on that. The men should follow the girls.
That's how it works around here.
So total enrollment is 1,658 students as of the end of these reports. And that is it, I think, for my report.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on them? No? All right, we'll move on then, and we'll stick right with Patty for the working group updates.
So we, I'll start with policy, even though it's really a subcommittee versus a working group, correct?
Yeah.
So we have our final meeting tomorrow, where we are going over sections L, K, and L. And that will have completed sort of our review of the policies with our MASC representative, Jim Hardy. So you'll be receiving sort of an updated summary of any new policies or major changes for adoption July or August. I mean, at the next meeting, you'll get your summary, but in terms of processing what you need to look at, that will happen in the summer. It's been a really great experience, I think, for all the members participating. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hey.
great experience.
No, I know.
Did
you say that with sarcasm?
I know.
She was just giving me an extra head nod.
I agree.
Thank you.
So in terms of the other three school committee goals, the outreach, community outreach group met. I don't know if one of you wants to do any kind of a overview of where we're at. We talked about ways to increase our presence at non-school functions. And we did find out a little more information since yesterday's conversation about the community picnic, so all looks good with that.
Oh, so that's on? Oh, great. No, I think that actually what you said something at the beginning of the meeting that we hadn't really discussed, but connecting that community outreach piece with the tribal partnership efforts.
We need that piece.
That they've been kind of operating on parallel tracks, and maybe we can sort of bridge those together. But I'm frankly looking forward to the pace of these summer meetings where we sort of have a little bit more time in between meetings to process things. And we've been, I don't know what it's like on the tribal side, but it just feels like we've been going meeting to meeting to meeting. So I think we'll probably have something, I think we wanted to have something by the July meeting.
That's our comms plan, right?
Yeah. Communication plan. Just to sort of piggyback slightly on what Nicole just said, we just discussed as an admin team yesterday the feeling that it is so super busy and so many things that sometimes are on the plate in the school year have gotten put on hold, and it's starting to feel like there is no respite during the summer. And so we have to work on doing that, because there needs to be a time for everyone to sort of rejuvenate, but I don't know, somehow it just keeps growing. So yes, we feel that too. And then the other efficiency and effectiveness goal group hasn't met. Who's still on that now?
That would be George and myself, so I have to get with George and find out when things are good for him.
Okay.
Hopefully he's not on any trips anytime.
And that whole goal, just for all of you, is to just sort of, as a committee, how can they improve their effectiveness and efficiency? So we did implement one of those changes this year in terms of our reorganization, so that was good. And then the other goal is the finance working group, which is working on a 5-year picture of projections for the finances for the public schools, and how can we better plan and explain our past and our future in terms of the financial side of things. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I don't believe we've met since the last meeting, so. Did we? I don't believe we did. Yeah, I don't believe we've met.
That's really an effort by us to try to collaborate better with the town so that the budget each year doesn't come as some big surprise. And actually help us plan for capital expenses and things that are a little further out. So it's, I think, something that we all feel very strongly about, that is a really important effort that we stood up last year, and Jeff and George have been the leading that charge. So
we want to be able to inform our advocacy with the town, and this is what our future vision for the school, and this is what it's going to take to get there. So you need to tell us if we can go keep marching on or not. So.
And the two members, the school committee members who are part of the working group also have a little bit more of a integral part of like the FY20 budget development. So there's a stronger knowledge base, so when we get to the end product, it's not just sort of presented without them understanding all the pieces inside of it. So, yeah. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I've determined we have a new way to do the meetings efficiently. Patty presents everything, and we just sit here and nod our heads.
Speaking of which, we're going to go to the next agenda item, new business.
Hey,
School physician job description.
So if you notice in the packet, you have a school physician job description, which was obviously typed on a typewriter way back when. It's, when you look at it, I don't even know how it kind of landed as long as it did. And then you have the proposed new job description, which has, thank you to our nurse coordinator, Stacy, Nurse Stacy, who has worked really hard with the health advisory group as well, and her network of other nurses to develop what really well-developed job description for the position. So it's not a new position, and it's not something you need to vote on, but I wanted you to be aware that the description has been dramatically updated. And in the past, our physician is Dr. Mozychuk, and I have somewhere in here history. So, Dr. Mozychuk, FY 2004 to FY 2012, was paid $1,200 a month for a 10-month of the school year for $12,000. And then in FY 13 to the present, and I believe it was under Superintendent Bradshaw, she kind of addressed that, and it became $600 a month for 10 months. So he gets, or whoever, gets $6,000 a year. And it's pretty well spelled out. I know that Stacy has also shared the job description with Dr. Mozychuk, and whether it gets posted or he does get an annual letter appointing him, so I'm not sure if there'll be other interests, so we'll see.
Yeah, so what does he do?
So he does give, he's a source,
In case anyone was
he's an
curious.
advisor to the nurses. I'm thankful we have 3 very strong nurses who really are so well informed and educated that we all go to them for everything. But he is an advisor to them. I'm only aware, and I'm not at the building level anymore, but he did consult with us once this year in terms of, I think it was a question of school, challenging situation with a student's health and some conflicting information from a parent and that doctor, so he did get involved with that. I remember a time when someone used to come to school to do athletic physicals. I'm not sure that happens anymore, so we can call on him if we want him to provide us sort of an examination of an educator that we may have concerns about, but it's not
It sounds like a little bit like a retainer.
It's a retainer.
You know, he's
We're
kinda
over here
like-
chuckling because we remember lining up at the nurse's office in Mashpee and getting our annual physicals by the school physician.
Which I
Dr.
think,
Inge.
yeah, I think for families, that's a great thing, and particularly athletic physicals, which always seem to catch people off guard, and then the timing of it's not right, and it can't get into their person. And, so I would love to sort of see a little bit of that opportunity come back.
Yeah, I wonder if those went away when the cost was cut in half.
I don't know, I just really hated that. I mean, everybody got them, it didn't matter if you were playing sports.
Did we post this every year?
No, it's too, that's
posted every year.
That's right. It sounded like he has, like, it was a reappointment, like there was a contract for a certain chunk of time.
I don't know, I know that I've only looked into like the last few years, there's like a letter that says you are appointed, but I don't know.
Interesting. Do you think it would be more expensive just as ad hoc, as opposed to a retainer?
I don't know, I think every school, I don't know if we're required to have a school physician. Maybe like the town council, I don't know. Every
I
school
mean, you can
has
still have
one.
a school physician, but you don't pay him $600 a month.
As we need them.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
I was curious, I was curious. I don't know the ins and outs.
We haven't issued anything.
I'm just looking, I don't think we saw anything. Have we come across anything in policy?
The ones that I've been there for, no.
That was a trick question.
Yeah, well.
You would actually, I'll tell you what meeting it was at. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, my question, when I looked at the job description, there's a lot of things
Yes, there is,
here.
I know.
And if we're paying $600 a month, I have the wrong physician. You know. So, it seemed to me like this was a nice laundry list of things, but it sounds like it doesn't coincide with what's actually happening here.
Well, I think this is an update, and you'll notice the word may in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
No, I know, you may do this, you may do, but, if we have no realistic desire to have him provide direct services,
I'll explain that.
why do we put it in there, I guess? And if we do have that desire, and if there's a realistic need, then, I think the Finance Task Force needs to take a look at that. Figure it out.
Working group.
Working group.
Working group.
Yes.
That we need to figure out what's realistic, because I see a huge request with minimal funding, and so we're doing like one or two things. Basically, he's there for advisory only, and everything else that's on this list isn't happening.
Well, but I mean, in fairness though, I mean, our Nurse Stacy, who's, I mean, pretty, I would say, really competent, had made these changes, and she is recommending that we, I guess I'd like to know if she's recommending that we do this. If she is, then I think I would defer to the school nurse over what she knows that the school needs better than what seems reasonable on paper.
Well, and I'm fine with deferring to her and regular services, but then there needs to be adequate funding to be able to provide the services. If she's saying we need to provide direct services, I don't think the funding accomplishes that. So, I just would like more information to kind of balance the two between what it is we want them to do versus what we can afford them to do.
Well, I guess we don't know, right, until it gets posted. Maybe there is a position out there that says, hey, that's enough money.
You can afford up to $6,000.
But you're right, I mean, we're kind of taking that chance that somebody looks at this list and doesn't think, hey, what if may means that I could be asked to do all of this stuff.
Well, to be honest with you, if you look at this is, all the same things are in both of these.
Yeah.
This is just much more verbose, and it has direct linkages to MGL and such, and I think it's just a much more formalized document. One thing that is missing though is terms of employment and evaluation, and that needs to be added to the new position description. I didn't see it.
To Tom's point, I guess we should probably just be ready for lack of interest, and maybe understand we may need to increase funding if that's the problem.
Was that your point?
I think it is,
I think, and it goes both ways too, because it does say in this, it does say in here that it's, provides the examinations for all students participating in interscholastic athletics at the start of each season. And clearly, we're paying the individual for that, that's not happening, correct?
Because this is the current one on the books.
Right. So, I think it kind of goes both ways, is the individual that we're paying $6,000 a year doing what the job description says, and what do we need to pay to have them do what the new job description says?
Because I'll bet families would take advantage of that.
Yeah, it hasn't been done since I was a young teacher coach in Mashpee, so but it was a
What was
tremendous
that, like
service.
5 years ago?
No.
Nice compliment.
It was 11 years ago.
Age is
Thank you,
well.
Bob.
He's blushing, I made him
Thank
blush.
But I think the point is, it hasn't been offered in maybe that long,
Correct.
right?
But we've had it in our thing for some time, yeah.
So I just think we need to reconcile between what is our ask and what is what we're willing to
And
do.
maybe there's a bigger paper trail as to when it got cut from 12 to 6,000, as to what was no longer on the plate, somewhere in the document.
Yeah. So what happens now? Does this come back to us?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then next in the packet is Summer Institute for MASC, if you're interested in going to that on July 20th and the 21st. If you can let us know so we can register you, and that would include if you're staying overnight in between, because it would be kind of, not necessarily if you want to drive home in between that's a key on Friday night. What?
Probably not.
From Marlboro?
So, and there's some good topics there, so if you're interested, can you let Gail know, and then she'll register you?
What's the, no later than date for registration on what calendar?
June 29th?
Is there any danger of 3 of us going? No, okay.
We just can't speak to another.
All right, next up is your self-evaluation. We last did this at the beginning of this school year, and we used the same form. And I do have, I was going to do it, I was going to wait and see how you want to do it. If you want me to take the self-evaluation form and put it into SurveyMonkey, and then you can do it electronically, and then we can create pretty charts. Or I have last year's summary.
Otherwise, do you remember we did them, and then she assembled them all and then presented it?
It wasn't overly difficult, so these were all of the categories last year, and what we did was, again, we went with one for strongly agree. So lower is better.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, good, I'm glad I did.
so I averaged all your scores, there's only 5 of you, it's not that taxing to do it that way, and so we'll be able to create a double column so you can see where you were in September of 17 and now where you are now on these categories. But this is it, and if you want to do paper-wise, you can have
Which would you prefer?
Well, I don't particularly view myself building the SurveyMonkey questionnaire, although once we build it once, we'll have it for all the years. I mean, it will be a Gale thing, so I like to be able to present the data that way. It kind of looks good that way, so do you prefer?
Yes, do it.
Well, the document should be digital somewhere, correct? Because we had to print it out from somewhere, so we probably just copy and paste the stuff right in the survey, won't get anything.
Oh, yeah. So we'll do that.
And I know Don's a little afraid of technology, but I think we'll get through it.
All right, so we'll do it as,
You're lucky I'm between you two, you guys.
we'll do it in SurveyMonkey, and then we'll, once that's out, I think we'll get it set up, and on our meeting on June 20th, which by the way is at the high school at 5, remember? We'll have it ready to go then, and you can pick a due date.
I'm shaking my head, but I will forget that probably on June.
We'll remind you. Okay, that's it for me. Unless you have questions.
Questions, anyone? No? Perfect. All right, the next item on the agenda is committee reports, if anybody has any, subcommittees or anything.
No, sir.
The collaborative meets next week. I missed last month's meeting. And I did send a note to Patty this morning talking about the Aspiring Leaders Development Program, the ESLP, which is the, I don't want to call it nerd camp, but that's what they call it everywhere, which is at Mass Maritime for 3 weeks in the summer. So that's run through the collaborative, but I had inquired about how many students we had going this year and whether we filled all our slots. And we had at some point, I didn't know if either of you guys remembered, what we talked about broadening the candidate pool potentially, because that's not something that's prohibited necessarily, so that if we wanted to allow more kids to apply, that is, when I say we, I mean them, not we, the school committee, So anyway, that's just something that I will probably get more information on next week, but I also asked Patty to get us that for just specific to Mashpee.
How many slots do we have?
It's like 14 or something.
It's usually between 11 and 14 based upon each year.
Yeah.
Historically, does that fill up every year?
Yes.
And there's some discussion about whether kids should be allowed to go, again, like if they've already gone.
Yes, it's happened, I think, once that I can recall, but not often, because we want to try to open it up to as many new faces as possible.
Yeah. And I think my concern was that a program like that's such a tremendous opportunity, we would want to make available to as many kids that we think could be successful in that. And I was just surprised to learn that our MCAS scores were kind of the criteria. And I just thought, well, that stinks if you're not good at taking MCAS tests.
Yeah, it's prescribed by the program, but that's something definitely they could look at.
Well, they told me that prescription is not enforced, and that's what they said at the collaborative. Yeah. And we're the rule followers in Mashpee, but they did say that that's really at the discretion of us, that they don't check, so that we could, if we thought we wanted to open it up to more kids, that we could do that.
Is it just 8th grade that goes to that? So how would a kid get to go twice?
Sometimes it's 7th grade.
Yeah, it's open to both.
So who makes the ultimate decision? The superintendent or the principal?
It's usually done through the middle school guidance and team of students.
So that was the only thing I was going to mention, and I hope somebody is going to tell me what the superintendent evaluation committee does at some point, because I'm now on that committee.
Nothing right now.
Okay, good.
Anybody?
That's what
I mean, it does pretty much what you think it does.
Yeah, but we don't have to do anything now.
Not right now.
Okay, that's all I was wondering.
That's all.
Okay, perfect.
We get the ball rolling and start setting this stuff up. Anybody else? All right. Anybody have anything that we did not already discuss that maybe you want to bring up for the next meeting? All right. Last thing is public comment. Did anybody else bring this out for public comment? Okay. All right, then last item on the agenda, we need a motion to adjourn.
But before we do that, I just want to thank our hosts for having us and always appreciate it. It's great to see everyone's smiling face and reciprocally, we're always invited to the school committee's meetings.
Thank you. And maybe we should talk about like the next meeting, where we want to meet. Do we want to meet here again in the fall? Do we want to meet at the school? Maybe we should communicate about that sooner rather than later.
Well, maybe once the Quashnet Library is getting a rehab, so that might be a great place to christen it. With the joint meeting. And food. And food.
It's funny, I was gonna ask Mary Kate if there was gonna be food allowed in the new library.
Oh, well, that's
so nice.
Oh, well then, we'll definitely be hosting here.
I am trying to get new carpeting.
Yes, okay.
Would people be averse to having a potluck for our next meeting? Everybody bringing something to share, because it's always at dinner time, and maybe you get dinner and maybe you don't. I didn't today. So.
Yeah, we could do something just like we did the first meeting where we had a little something beforehand. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So are we thinking October again?
Sounds good to me. Give everybody a chance to get the school year rolling, and
Yeah, that seemed to work out very well.
it did, I thought.
And then if it becomes sort of annual, we'll always know it's the first meeting of October.
Makes sense.
The one thing that's confounding here is I don't know whether it's being in this building that keeps us on time, or the fact that we have a new chair for this meeting.
Yeah, we actually have 5 minutes to spare.
Yeah.
Everyone's just looking at that.
Wonderful.
Let's talk about the menu for
Yes. So, thank you, for real.
Move to adjourn.
A
Motion
second.
adjourned by Jeff, second by Nicole. No discussion, Nicole?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.